after the real heroine appeared, the media deliberately focused the camera on Spencer Christ, and they praised the two for being evenly matched. A match made in heaven. I think so too. So he neatly filed for divorce that night. The man stared at the black and white words on the table, was silent for a long time, and finally asked in a low voice, "You know everything?" I nodded. "Yes, I know it. I am the vicious female partner in the novel. He is the protagonist, male protagonist with an official match, and we are not all the way." Thought that they would never get along with each other from old age. As a result, the man fell to his knees with a thud, his arms tightly wrapped around my thighs, and his eyes were red, and he begged me, "I'm sorry, wife. I shouldn't have tricked you into marrying me back then. I know it's wrong. You can beat me and scold me. Don't scare me with divorce. Fraud. What kind of deception?" Death smiles. Ever since I woke up to my role as a supporting actress, I realized how unwilling Spencer Christ was to marry me in the first place. Because I am the vicious female partner in the book, I have done all the bad things, and I am the culprit who caused him to meet the real heroine 5 years late. No wonder when he got married, when the master of ceremonies asked him if he would like to marry me, he held the microphone in his hand, and shook like he couldn't do it. It turned out that he hated me deeply. Thinking of this, I rolled over and glanced at the man sleeping next to me. His hands were still tightly wrapped around my waist, but the thought that maybe he was using me as a stand-in for the heroine suddenly made me feel very uncomfortable. I quietly broke his wrist, finally got up and grabbed the quilt, and ran to the sofa in the living room on the first floor to sleep. In the middle of the night, I slept in a daze, but I felt a little more weight on my body. "Spencer Christ," I said uncertainly. "Well, I'm here." The man's voice was hoarse and not yet awake, but he replied extremely cooperatively. "Why did you get up on the couch too?" I reached out and nudged him. "Go back to your room and sleep. Don't stick to me. Don't." He's unequivocal. Then he stretched out his warm palm, and slowly rubbed my stomach. "Is it Aunt again? You sleep well. I'll rub it for you." He thought I was in an unstable period, coming from emotions. In the dark, I turned my back to him, and wept silently, only feeling that my 3 years of post-marriage happiness were all stolen. By the time I woke up, Spencer Christ had already gone to work. I looked at the breakfast that was still smoking on the table, and my heart became more and more entangled in how to end my wrong starting point. Suddenly, I felt a tingling in my head, and I instinctively turned on the TV. The memories that made me realize who I were came back to life. It's like a string of incantations that are always circling in my head. "You and Spencer Christ's script was originally wrong, and now that the heroine has appeared, you have to give him back to the heroine. Look how compatible they are. You third party who meddles in other people's feelings." I stared at the actress in the media lens. She was bright and moving, and just a light smile focused the lights on the stage on her. "Hulda Carey." I spat out 2 words involuntarily. Then, the camera suddenly switched to the guest seat. I saw Spencer Christ rubbing his head over his ring. It took a few seconds for the man to come back to his senses, noticing that the camera was filming him, and he smiled and nodded at the camera. The photographer deliberately framed them together, and took a few group photos. I couldn't hear what the staff were saying in front of the TV, but I could feel their conversation firsthand. "It's a real match, and I guess Spencer Christ is here today because of Hulda Carey." Yes, he rarely showed his face in front of the media before. A talented and beautiful couple, and the strength is also comparable. And it is said that Hulda Carey's new film is Spencer Christ's investment. The plot in my head told me that the beginning of their story was Spencer Christ's investment in Hulda Carey's film, Hermosa Ben. You, as a cannon fodder female partner, who doesn't have a few chapters of the plot at all, not only did you not give way to the female owner, but you also directly robbed the male owner. Now the female owner is finally going to start with the male owner. Don't be ignorant. The guy who called himself the main plot line kept shouting in my head. The stolen things are not your own after all. Don't rob other people's dramas anymore. Vicious woman. I'm really fed up with its chatter, and I've completely recognized myself as the vicious female partner in the novel. Yes, Spencer Christ doesn't love me at all. He's always acting with me. Let's make a break tonight, and let each other go. Oh no, he's the male lead. According to the words of the plot line, I've always been entangled by myself. It doesn't matter. Isn't it just a man? Can't I live without him? So, at 7 p.m., since Spencer Christ had stepped into the house with his left foot, I conveniently filed for divorce. Wife, what do you want to eat at night? He's still looking down and changing his shoes. Spencer Christ, we'll get divorced in the evening. I sat on the couch and looked at him, with a serious face. Okay, he agreed, and then placed the key on the cabinet in the doorway. Until he walked up to me, and was about to hug me, he suddenly froze. What? Divorce. The agreement is on the table. I stretched out my finger and pointed. To say that there is no affection for him is naturally false. After all, I took him to the hospital the first time we met. When I first got my driver's license, and went on the road, I wanted to keep a distance of 1 meter from him when I saw a locomotive parked there in front of me. But I ended up pushing people with 1 foot on the accelerator, and running for more than 10 meters. When I got out of the car, my legs were trembling. Spencer Christ collapsed on the side of the road, and I cried and asked him where he was hurting. He just reached out to me, and helped him up, and reassured me that he was fine. As a result, I only took 2 steps and passed out in my arms again. As the party responsible, I happened to have another problem with my family's company, and it felt like the sky was falling. I thought I would simply sell the car to him as compensation, but Spencer Christ didn't take me a penny, and only asked me to take care of him until he recovered. In the end, the company's capital chain was also revitalized. Later, I didn't know why I got married to him in a daze, but now it seems, sure enough, everything was just a mistake. My life should have been a puddle of mud, but I just happened to meet the male protagonist and got wet. Wife, what's wrong with you? Spencer Christ glanced at the papers on the table, crumpled them up, and tossed them into the trash. He sat down next to me, and reached out and touched my forehead. Do you have a cold and feel uncomfortable? I'm calling the doctor right now. Spencer Christ, let's stop there. We were wrong from the start. Sign it, and you'll have a better life. He snatched it and tore it to shreds. I took a second divorce deed out of the drawer, and I knew he was stubborn. Oh, okay, Hermosa Ben, you're hard-hearted, aren't you? I'll tear it, I'll tear it, I'll tear it. Spencer Christ snatched it, tore it to pieces, and ran downstairs and threw it into the green trash can. When I returned, gasping for breath, I unbuttoned the collar of my shirt, and stood in the doorway with my back to me, saying no more. The house was so quiet that only the ticking of the clock and watch was oscillating. Spencer Christ sniffed at the door. In the end, he choked up, so he took out a tissue from his trouser pocket to wipe away his tears. My straightened legs suddenly went numb. Spencer Christ, isn't it just a divorce? What are you crying about, a big man? If it weren't for the fact that the system just said the name of the heroine in my head again, I would have relented. In the end, he will fall in love and marry other people in the future, and it is specially arranged by fate. But look at me. In addition to the divorce explained by the system, what is the rest of the ending? In the original text, the vicious actress Hermosa Ben invested all her family property in stock speculation because of her greed for money, and finally lost nothing, and she chose to jump off the building because she couldn't accept it. I couldn't even survive in the end, but don't worry, that was the ending of the previous female supporting role. But since you have changed the direction of the story, as long as you no longer interfere with the male and female protagonists, you can also have a smooth life in the future. I've asked the system what would happen if I didn't do what it said would happen if I didn't get a divorce, categorically. But why? Hermosa Ben, we didn't quarrel. We had a good time. Why should we leave? Isn't it? Am I not behaving well at night? Are you not feeling well? You tell me, I'll change it. After that, if you say stop, I'll stop. Before I could put my slippers on, the man had already catapulted in front of Spencer Christ. Cover his mouth and give him a look. Ahem. There's more to this room than just us. Don't you just talk about everything? Who else is there besides the two of us? You are hiding the junior. The man's eyes were still red, and his already calm emotions suddenly became agitated again. I know that you don't love me. How did he seduce you? Where is he? You call him out. I promise not to kill him. Spencer Christ's tone was fierce, but the tears were still falling down in large drops. I really didn't expect him to be a crying bag. Where did you come from? I mean, aren't there any other creatures in this room besides the two of us? Don't you listen to the fish in the fish tank, and the king in the basin? Who told you to say everything? The system is staring at me, and if it understands and gives me an electric baton in all its anger, how will I live? I shouted at him at the top of my voice. I was still a little sad, but now I only have a ball of fire in my stomach. Forget it, let's calm down for a few days, and I'll move out first. I was ready to go upstairs to get my suitcase, but Spencer Christ grabbed my wrist and didn't let go. Why did you move out? This title deed is in your name, Spencer Christ. There are some things we know. Let's stop this mistake. The system says that Spencer Christ knows who he is, and that it had told him before it was implanted in my brain that the world was a giant Mary Sue, and that he was the male protagonist of Sweet Pet Win, and that his female protagonist was still waiting for him. Something. He finally quieted down. You know it all. The man put away his aggrieved eyes and replaced them with a trace of panic that left a trace. It seems that he really knows that he is the male protagonist, and I am just the female partner. He knew what we were going to do, but he still haunted me with a pretense of pretending. Just as we were at a stalemate, his phone rang, and the moment I heard Hulda Carey's voice, I was completely aware of reality. I thought he was really reluctant to give me up. Sure enough, the man is in tears, and you will be heartbroken. Then don't bother Spencer Christ about business. I snapped his wrists, grabbed his suitcase, and ran out without looking back. After rushing into the car and locking it, he chased it out again, but I only left him with a row of car exhaust. You can also see it. I also mentioned the divorce, and I can't help it if he doesn't sign it. Try not to meet in the future. My male protagonist is because he has met with the female protagonist a few times, and there is no time to run in, and he will take the initiative to sign in a few days. The system snorted dissatisfied. And when are you going to disappear from my mind? I asked again. When the original plot starts again. The original plot. Then it is estimated that it will have to wait until the male and female protagonists express their hearts to each other. I parked my car in the underground garage, and planned to rest for the night at a nearby hotel and wait for a ticket to go back to my parents' house tomorrow. I had just come out of the elevator after getting my room key, when I was suddenly grabbed by a young strange man on the shoulder. Am I ugly? He frowned and asked me very seriously. I was startled, leaned back slightly, thought for 3 seconds, and then shook my head. Very Peugeot appearance, peach blossom eyes, high nose bridge. Height is also 185 meters. Compared with Spencer Christ, slightly inferior. After all, Spencer Christ is the male protagonist, but this one in front of him is also handsome. Then why did she break up with me? When the young man heard this, he became even more depressed, and sat down in front of the door, as if he were hanging from his breath. I understand. I also broke up with my girlfriend. Girls, quarrels are inevitable. Just coax them in a few days. I politely comforted him. Of course, not out of kindness, but because he stood in my way. I can't sit anywhere, but I sit in front of my room. You don't understand. If she becomes a movie queen in the future, it will be completely impossible for me and her. He scrambled to his feet, and finally tried to give way. But I, the melon-eating crowd, am a little unsatisfied. Your girlfriend is still a celebrity. Who? Ahem. A bright pearl rising in the domestic film industry, the man suddenly introduced in a straight voice, Hulda Carey. Only when I heard these 2 words, it cracked instantly. Hey, you two are definitely out of play, so let's break it off as soon as possible. It turns out that the heroine also talked about the object. So who will this character who is also in the book? Jerome Hume, a character who appeared for 2 minutes and played soy sauce. Damn, I actually abducted my heroine with soy sauce. The system is indignant in my head. I listened to its staccato electronic sound, and I was really angry. It seems that everything in the book is out of order. Why is it not playing? Didn't you just comfort me? Jerome Hume grabbed his phone, and showed me the wallpaper on the screen. I proposed to her a month ago, and she said yes. Did you break up with you suddenly? I wanted to turn away, but I turned back. Yes, without warning. Eldest sister, it seems that you have a lot of experience. Can you give me a move? The man's eyes lit up, and he came up and took my hand, crying and pleading, and he almost knelt down. Spread your paws. Who's your eldest sister? Why did I get such a lump again? And I took it. You give me a contact information first, and I'll tell you when I think about it. Good, good, Good. I looked through Jerome Hume's circle of friends, and it was almost all about his past with Hulda Carey. The two of them were very affectionate, and at least from Hulda Carey's eyes, I saw a familiar feeling. Then she suddenly broke up with her boyfriend. Maybe she knew her identity. I can't stand it anymore. So quickly turn off your phone. The system suddenly shouted frantically, I don't want to see the heroine with other people. Understood. This dead system is the male and female protagonist CP fans. Okay, don't look at it. When I returned to the interface, I saw 10 caller alerts, all of which belonged to Spencer Christ, and I thought that the system was angry at this moment. I didn't turn back. I fell asleep. As a result, my eyes opened the next day. Spencer Christ is on the hot search. Pound the president of the Pound Christ family group cried bitterly at the door of the police station in an unsuccessful search for his wife. Pound my eyelids jumped wildly and dialed the phone. Hey, ex-husband, I'm just staying in a hotel. I'm not dead. He told people all over the world that I was lost, and my bones were not cold. You said you. I cried a few times at home, and I even cried at the door of the police station. I was on the phone, and there was silence on the other side. It was only after a while that he opened his mouth in ink. It's good that you're okay. Hurry up and get the case out. Don't take up public resources. There is no case at all. You have been missing for less than 24 hours. The man's voice was hoarse, and he was still a little tired when he listened carefully. The divorce agreement. I sent it to the company for you. You remember to sign it. I explained again. As for the divorce property, I don't want any of them. Seeing that the deadline given by the system was approaching, I couldn't put it off any longer. That's why you want a divorce. Is it because of the vixen at the door of your hotel last night? He also took your hand. I saw it. All right, Hermosa Ben. Divorce is okay, but I have one request. No. Where did the vixen pull my hand? Jerome Hume. He also tuned the hotel surveillance. He's not. You've misunderstood again. I was tired of explaining on the phone, but the man didn't listen at all, so I asked me to listen to his request clearly. There's a dinner party next month, and it's for Hulda Carey, but I'm inviting you to be there, and as soon as you can see the full dance I did with her, I'll get a divorce. This is where the story of Hulda Carey and Spencer Christ begins. It turns out that the fate of the protagonist is that no matter how you interrupt, you will return to the beginning. Hey, Hermosa Ben, why don't you speak? Not happy. In fact, as long as you are not happy, I will immediately. I promise you. I looked out the window at the sparse raindrops and nodded earnestly. There was a string of busy tones on the phone, and I curled the corners of my lips like self-deprecation. The system beats gongs and drums in his head, celebrating in advance that his protagonist has finally achieved a positive result. Spencer Christ sent a secretary to bring me 2 tickets. The meaning couldn't be more obvious. Today's resident singer at the tavern is somewhat familiar. When I got closer, I realized that it was Jerome Hume, who was crying in front of the hotel a few days ago. After singing the song, he also found that I had watched him in the audience for a long time. What's the matter, sister? Can you give me a trick today? He put down his guitar and walked towards me. I shoved the ticket into his hand. There's no trick. Pack up, and wait for your heart to break. I ordered a glass of sake at the bar and told him the story of me and Spencer Christ. At first, he didn't believe me and asked me if I had registered in the psychiatric department. Maybe it's a split personality. Really, some people with mental problems thought they were normal people at first, but when they went for an examination, they found out that they were really sick in the brain. Sister, I didn't mean to scold you. What you said is really evil. Jerome Hume rambled on for a long time, but he didn't believe it anyway, until I flipped through the examination report that I went to the hospital to show him. It showed that everything was fine. In the first few days, when the system was implanted in my brain, I did suspect that I was schizophrenic. I followed the information given to me by the system, and told me about my experience with Jerome Hume. He was skeptical. In the end, I asked him to think about the details of his breakup with Hulda Carey, and the reason for the cliff breakup was to make room for the male protagonist. Jerome Hume finally broke through the defenses, and took a sip of his glass. When I returned to Ben's old house, as soon as I entered the door, I saw a beautifully packaged gift box on the table. Hermosa Ben, this is the dress you wanted, right? The first one Spencer Christ gave you. And Mom knew you liked it. My mom wiped the water from her hands, and happily beckoned me in. But as soon as I got to the door, I couldn't help crying. Mom, I'll move back in a few days. She stood there in a daze, then took me into her arms. Didn't ask me why, didn't ask me what was going on between me and him, just patted me on the back over and over again to soothe me. Okay, Hermosa Ben is back. Mom must be happy. Mommy will support you in whatever you do. Since my dad died of a cerebral hemorrhage, the closest person I've ever had in this world besides Spencer Christ has been my mom. If I don't even have the right to live in the end, then I don't have any love. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Spencer Christ. I put the gown in the basement. I turned around and went into the bedroom, and turned out the gown I used to chair meetings in college. On the way to the banquet, I received a call from Jerome Hume. Pick me up at the tavern later. When he was given the voucher at first, he was not happy to go. Why did you change your mind? I'll say goodbye to her one last time. The banquet was held in Golden Bay, and I wore flat shoes while driving, and I got out of the car, and held on to the car door before changing into high heels. When I bent over, a beautiful woman in a red dress happened to pass me. Then I saw Jerome Hume in the co-pilot, clang, pressed his seat, and lay straight down. It wasn't until she was far away that I knocked on the car door. That's Hulda Carey. They're far away. Look at this cowardice. Who coaxed it? I didn't accidentally press the wrong one. I was going to get out of the car. The man hurriedly made up for himself, looking left and right, as if he was busy, but he didn't know what he was busy with. When I entered, I didn't see Spencer Christ. I didn't know anyone around me. Finally, I found a quiet place to sit down. On my phone, it was a text message from Spencer Christ. Why are you wearing this skirt? On purpose. Me. In order not to let him think too much, I deliberately didn't wear the dress he gave, and I was targeted by him again. Forget it, we'll be strangers in the future anyway. I don't care. I stared at the phone screen in a daze, ignoring him. After 10 minutes, the black screen lit up again. I said I didn't care. Didn't send the message? Oh, it's out. Then why didn't you react? Hey, you don't care. Right. Okay, okay. Count me as sentimental. Another 10 minutes. Ignore me. Count you ruthless? I'm going to delete you. What about people? I'm just trying to see if you deleted me. Until the red dot next to his avatar was almost 99 plus. He still didn't stop. Then I'll delete it first. The music in the hall was melodious, and under the spotlight, the beauty in the red dress, who had been with me before, appeared in my sight again. Behind her stood Spencer Christ, who was about to become my ex-husband. Looking past with me was Jerome Hume, who was about to shatter. He muttered quietly, "This is the male protagonist. You didn't tell me he was the president of the Christ group, so I'm completely out of luck. My raised eyebrows are a question mark. And you are not dead yet." The system that had been lying in my head for a long time was resurrected. It looped, "Good luck coming," in my head. Everyone is happy. The whole world celebrates. My male and female protagonists are finally about to officially enter the plot. My hard-pressed part-time job is finally coming to an end. Are you leaving? I jumped a little inside of me. Yes, as long as they finish this dance. Even if my plot is successful, then I can get out of your brain. Where did you go after you left my mind? Find another living creature to parasitize on it temporarily, waiting for the organization to recall. The system speaks sonorously. I pursed my lips and smiled, and was about to look up when Jerome Hume poked me in the arm. Hey, are you going to stare me to death with that look? I'm glaring back. 2. Spencer Christ, 5 meters away from me, was murderous, and Hulda Carey turned her head at me. I thought about many kinds of eyes. Maybe unkind, haughty, or plain and unwavering, but her eyes were bright, especially when she saw me. It's like a cat has seen a furball toy. Her slightly curved eyebrows showed that she had no ill intentions, and then gave Jerome Hume a second look. Ahem, forget it, I don't have the same knowledge as him. Jerome Hume tugged at his neckline, then fiddled with the unlit cigarette in his hand. The music started again, and I couldn't take my eyes off the two dancing in the light. It's just that the atmosphere doesn't feel right. Spencer Christ moved awkwardly, always stepping on Hulda Carey's feet, and the two of them went back and forth, although they were dancing, but more like they were stepping on each other's shoes in revenge. I was sweating on my forehead, and I turned around a second before the music ended and told the system, "All right, your mission is complete, let's go." "Yes, it's done, but I'm still looking for a parasitic body." "Wait, let me ask again. Is it really completely gone? You won't be repeating it again, will you?" "Of course. Our system bureau is very busy, and you think I'd be happy to stare at you people who don't follow the rules every day?" NPCs, you don't know, I was in the last book before, and the heroine, she couldn't live or die. Seeing that it was about to stop babbling, I just caught a stray dog passing by. "Hey, isn't this just a living creature? You make do with the dog first, and wait for the organization to take you back." When the system was attached to the Shiba Inu, my brain suddenly relaxed, and it was much more comfortable. It feels good to have my life back in my hands. Woo, woo. No, if you take me in to see them again, I don't feel right. Shiba Inu, who was entangled in the system, had red eyes and barked at my dog. I hurriedly beckoned the security guard at the door to give it a ride. "Hey, look where this dog came from. It's almost thin into a telephone pole. Hurry up and take it to the stray dog shelter." Woo, woo. Can't you understand me? Hey, you stupid NPCs aren't allowed to carry me by the neck. The system was choked and thrown into the trunk of the van, and I waved at it and never saw it again. How? Still have a headache. Before I could even notice that Hulda Carey had come out of the hall, she took 2 more steps towards me, and stopped less than a meter away from me. Before I could answer her, she spoke first. "Looks like that guy is gone. Did it look for you, too?" I finally made sure that Hulda Carey, as the heroine, also knew about the existence of the system. Now the truth is out. That's right. Just a few months ago I always dreamed of a blank room, with a book about my ending with a strange man. There's a voice that has been brainwashing me, saying that this is the beginning of my happy life. I thought I was stressing myself too much lately, until I could hear your conversation with the system again clearly. Hulda Carey curled her hair around her ears, and told me everything she knew. The system is unable to hurt and coerce the protagonist of the book, and it only after seeking Hulda Carey to no avail that it finds me and asks me to give up the male protagonist, on the grounds that it threatens my life. Hulda Carey is the heroine. She is not controlled by the system. In fact, she can live in a different place with Jerome Hume, and I won't hear the system when I am far away. But she chose to act in such a play with Jerome Hume. "Let Jerome Hume find me staying at the hotel." Deliberately said those words that broke up with the heroine, just to gain the trust of the system. What I see and hear is exactly what the system perceives. So between me and Spencer Christ, there was nothing. And of course I pretended to break up with Jerome Hume. The girl smiled, but looked behind me through me. Jerome Hume scratched his nose, a little embarrassed. "I'm sorry, sister, be humble. Oscar owes you a little golden man." I also laughed, and quipped, "Thank you for being willing to help me, even though we don't know each other." Finally, I sincerely thanked her. The moon was round that night, and it was a sign of our happy ending. Without the system, I walked as light as a swallow. But as soon as I stepped on the pebble road and returned, a dull male voice came from in front of me. "I'm very happy, too. I can be dispensable anyway." Spencer Christ laughed self-deprecatingly with his head hanging under the streetlight, and there were a few conspicuous footprints on his shoes. "Do you know that I haven't slept a day since the day you said you wanted a divorce? And I didn't call the police that day to make a joke. I really thought you lost it. This city is so big. You only have our home here. Where else can you go at such a late hour?" The man spoke intermittently, pausing and slowing down when his tone was urgent. "Can you just tell me? Does that broken system threaten you? Tell me, let's figure it out together. You can't just leave me alone." His voice grew hoarse, his pitch lowered, and finally he slowly crouched down, still unwilling to look at me. "Spencer Christ." I stood in front of him and called out to him, "Are you angry?" And he ignored me. "You don't have to hug it. Forget it." I was talking to myself, and I was about to turn around and walk, when my waist tightened suddenly. The man was silent, but very hard. "Then listen to me now." I stroked his hair, which was considered to be a smooth hair for the wrong puppy. "Didn't I tell you that we both understood? I thought you knew about me and the system. Isn't that the case? I thought you were talking about 3 years ago. I lied to you." His head was buried in my neck, and the hot and wet breath was spilling on my skin, tickling. I was stunned. It turned out that it wasn't a thing. No. What a lie to me. Lie to me 3 years ago. What did you lie to me? I grabbed him by the collar and told him to stand up straight. Sure enough, this man's eyes dodged, and suddenly he didn't dare to look at me. Shay, what's the matter? No, I'm drunk. Wife, let's go home. I'm not hypocritical. Spencer Christ even coaxed his relatives, but he refused to mention it again. I'm not happy about what I could have lied to 3 years ago. We had just met at that time. Didn't I just hit him with my car, and he held me responsible? Wrong. Say it or not. Don't say that we have to leave. I still have a divorce agreement in my bag. I was pretending to rummage through my bag, but the tall man in front of me fell to his knees with a thud, his hands dead, ground hugging my thighs. Joe, I'll recruit them all. Don't talk about divorce anymore. I can't hear these 2 words. I crashed the car 3 years ago, but I was fine, so I deliberately relied on you to let you take care of me. Then why? We just met for the first time. As far as I can remember, my first meeting with Spencer Christ was on the path in the underground garage. No, we first met at a hosting meeting at the university, but you're on stage, and I'm behind the scenes. On Saturday night, your sophomore year, you wore this gown like a princess. When I was a sophomore at the age of 19, it was the hardest year for me. 3 months after my father died of a cerebral hemorrhage, I went back to school to continue my studies, but I always felt like something was missing in my life. It's like my sky is falling. I can't sleep at night. I can't lift my spirits during the day, and I always like to wander when I talk to other people. My friend advised me to participate in more extracurricular activities. Hermosa Ben, you're going to get sick if you go on like this, and your father won't want you to do that. I listened to them, and began to push myself to be proactive. After being elected as the host group, my life seems to be much fuller. There's more I need to do. No more being alone in a corner. But I don't have the impression of Spencer Christ. I don't really want to reminisce about the past. I wiped away the tears that were about to overflow from the corners of my eyes. I feel sorry for you, Hermosa Ben. He saw me crying and anxiously wanted to wipe my tears. But when he looked at his hands and felt dirty, he was about to reach out and be held down by me. Ahem, there's someone next to you. All right, you can go home and talk to me, slowly. He finally smiled, his reddened eyes raised, and his previous resentment was gently blown by the wind, and there was nothing left. But when did Spencer Christ go with me, and get red eyes? My throat was sour. It turns out that the highest level of love, it's distressing. Male protagonist perspective. I actually told a little lie. The first time I met Hermosa Ben was not at the school party. It's on the side of a basketball court that is about to be demolished. At that time, the construction team had just begun, and the sound of the tractor was comparable to thunder. I was addicted to the ball, so I ran to the open space next to me, and threw it for a while. From 7 o'clock in the morning until noon I came back with a shower after eating. On the stone steps not far from me, there had been a girl sitting. She buried her head in her knees, always in that position. It's a day, and I'm wondering if her back isn't sore. What a strange girl. Originally, I didn't really care about it, but every time I came here to play, she was there. It wasn't until one afternoon that she finally looked up. I wanted to raise my hand to say hello, but she wasn't looking at me. A pair of eyes that were originally very beautiful, but they looked blankly ahead. One evening, she walked alone into the old building. I followed with the idea of saving someone's life to build a 7th-level floating slaughter, but fortunately she didn't think about it. Later, I officially met her backstage at a singer competition held at the school. She put on her gown and walked to the front of the stage with a smile on her face, just like the 2 people I had met on the basketball court before. I was a little curious and asked the others about it. Some people will say that she is strong, and some people just have no heart when they open their mouths. Only I know the pain that she hides. Since then, it has been as if a seed has been planted in my heart that will blossom, looking forward to passing by with her every time. It wasn't until 6 years ago that I met her in the true sense of the word. I exaggeratedly lay on the ground and hugged my knees, trying to beg for more glances in the most clumsy and despicable way. The girl helped me up in a panic, but I grabbed the corner of her clothes and refused to let go. Later, when I got married, I was quite unproductive. The hand holding the microphone was shaky, I don't know why I like her so much. From the time the age of 19 secretly looked at it, that seed had already taken root and sprouted. What kind of system are you? The male protagonist. And the destiny of heaven. It's all I know is who I love. And I have to be good to her. Life is only a few decades. And the person we love is in front of us. So hold her hand and don't let go. Hermosa Ben said that she is a cannon fodder female partner. Then I am a cannon fodder male partner. If I am the chosen male protagonist, then she must also be the chosen female protagonist. She is the other half of my heart. No way. We were born to be a couple. The end.